What up? What up? What up? Welcome to another episode of the Sports PSP podcast, the highlight of Friday nights. First and foremost, happy Thanksgiving. Although it's the day after Thanksgiving, but anyway, happy Thanksgiving, man. Hope everyone is enjoying a fantastic day coming off some interesting football. We had some really big football games we had yesterday, Thanksgiving, and of course Black Friday, which we will get into in just a second. Our main man BRF Sports is not here. Obviously, you know he is a girl dad, he is a father, he has to take care of a lot of responsibilities. But hey, we understand. And of course, we cannot do the Sports PSP podcast without my main man, all the way from Columbus, Georgia. He is the four-time college degree champion. He is the Al Roker of journalism. He is the young Charles Barkley. He is suave, sophisticated, as his father always calls him. He is a champ. He is Mama Champ's number one favorite son. Kamala Harris and Barack Obama told him to stay his behind away from the refrigerator, but he followed in pursuit, and he is having himself a blast because his Georgia Bulldogs took care of business against Georgia Tech. He is brilliant, funny, sophisticated, all that. The one and only undisputed world champ. How you doing, big fella?
Oh man, that was lovely. Oh man, nothing like a big victory to just start your weekend off, get the juices really going, and yeah, ugly win, but I'm gonna take it nevertheless, man. Look, big shout out to Sports PSP, man. Always a privilege, a pleasure, and an honor to be on here, man. And I'm happy that my Georgia Bulldogs got the win. And I'm happy to have only eaten 2 slices of Mama's cheesecake yesterday. So, so I'm pretty good. I did pretty good yesterday. I didn't overindulge, but Mama's cheesecake was pretty good, especially when she had the little Heath bars on there outside, the little cherries on the cheesecake. That was lovely. But shout out to everybody, man. Shout out to mom, dad, Ace, Derek, all of y'all, man. Y'all made Thanksgiving very, very special, man. And the turkey wings was awesome, moms. If you're watching this, I will say.
Man, who couldn't go wrong with turkey wings?
Yeah, turkey wings, man. And you know that little trend going around isn't tender. We actually did that yesterday. we we actually did that yesterday with the turkey wings, and they actually fell off the bone. So it was tender, man. That was a lovely meal, man. And like I said, I didn't overindulge. I didn't go overboard, so I feel real good about it.
Hey man, you can't complain, man. Can't complain. And also, shout out to the lovely D, our friend D, man. Love you, big sis. D also gives her hellos as well, champ. So hopefully by the time she'll talk to you and hopefully see you soon, whether at Columbus, Georgia, or in New York.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. How you doing, D man? Always good to hear a joke from you. Always good to see how supportive you are and everything, man. Good to see. Every time I see you down my timeline, I try to like something of yours. So keep doing what you're doing.
Absolutely. Big fella, man. What's going on with the Philadelphia Eagles? Let's just get to it, man. The Eagles lost to the Chicago Bears 24-15, 255 yards. The Eagles defense gave up rushing from DeAndre Swift, from your Georgia Bulldogs, of course, and the rookie Kalamange, 255 yards. Caleb Williams didn't play particularly well in that game. I mean, he missed a lot of throws. He could have had at least a couple of touchdown passes. He missed one in the red zone to Roma Dunze. But the Eagles' offense, so many miscues with their offense. The turnovers. It doesn't seem to me teams are afraid anymore with the tush push. And Saquon Barkley, as you mentioned before, running backs who've had historic seasons of 2,000 yards, they regressed the following year. A.J. Brown, he's gotten his targets, he's gotten his numbers, but I haven't heard many complaints about him losing, as well as the Eagles losing. And look, to me, champ, you got to tip your hat off to Chicago. That was actually a legit win for them to go on the road, nationally televised game, short week, Black Friday. They beat the Eagles. You could say it has more to do with Chicago, but you can also say it also has something to do with Philadelphia because the Eagles against the Dallas Cowboys, they blew a 21-point lead. Ugly. Worse than just as bad as your Atlanta Falcons. I mean, they're either the Philadelphia Falcons or the Atlanta Eagles because that's how they looked in the game against the Dallas Cowboys. Changes need to be made with this team. Kevin Patola must be fired after the season. Now, again, Chip, you've mentioned it's now their fourth offensive coordinator they've had to work with. And if they hire another offensive coordinator, there's going to be struggles with the offense. But Kevin Patola doesn't seem to be the guy. A.J. Brown has to be traded, champ. The question is where? Two. But it doesn't seem to me but it seems to me, champ, his days in Philadelphia are numbered. Because what's the point of keeping him with these types of frustrations? I think they're asking too much from Jalen Hurts to be something that he's not. And now with the injuries, champ, listen, losing Lane Johnson does hurt the team 4 to 6 weeks with that foot injury. And when you look at Philadelphia, they're just not looking the same. They're starting to look like the Eagles a couple of years ago in 2023, champ. Because that's how it's looking. Because at one point, they were flying high. They were winning games, even though unconvincing way. But now they're starting to tail off. And guess what? The Dallas Cowboys, they're not too far behind from winning the division because they've won 3 consecutive games. They beat the Raiders, they beat the Eagles, and they beat the Kansas City Chiefs yesterday. It seems to me that Brian Schottenheimer has done an outstanding job. And if the Cowboys actually make the playoffs and perhaps win the division, you have to throw him in the conversation for Coach of the Year. I'm not saying he should win it, but at least he has to be in the conversation for Coach of the Year.
Yes.
And the defense, even though with the trades of Quinn Williams and Logan Wilson, they've made steady improvement. Dallas's defense just needs to be at least serviceable. They don't need to be outstanding. They don't need to be historic, but at least enough. And no team at this point haven't figured out a way to stop George Pickens. So, big fella, Chicago, I thought they won this game, even though it was pretty ugly on the part of Caleb Williams. And that's something that Chicago needs to be concerned about, especially when they make the playoffs. But they are 9-3. As for Philadelphia, man, they're starting to fall apart. And if they don't get together, because they have the Chargers next Sunday. So, big fella, what are your thoughts?
Woo, boy, a lot to unpack here. A lot. Number one, they have to find some type of stability at the offensive coordinator position. Stability. You are not going to be able to win consistently changing offensive coordinators every single year. If you don't believe that, just ask Mike Tomlin. Am I lying?
No, you're not.
Okay. So if you don't get stability, somebody who's going to be there at least 3 to 4 years so that you can just keep them in place for this offense, you're not going to win consistently. Like I stated, just ask the Pittsburgh Steelers and Mike Tomlin.
They slipping. They slipping.
Then look,
they slipping. They slipping
Bill
like
Cowher.
Brock Lesnar on Monday Night Raw. They slipping.
Yeah, they slipping. And if you need any further evidence, you can go back to the Steelers' history and ask Bill Cowher because he switched offensive coordinators 4 times in 6 years. That's the reason why Cordell Stewart had problems adjusting. So there's a lot to be unpacked here. Number one, I really think they're trying to force feed A.J. Brown in order to keep him happy. He has to be traded. He has to be traded next year. He has to be. And the thing is, maybe if they don't have to force feed him, maybe they'll be a lot better off. Because guess what? When he wasn't getting 100 yards, they was winning. Let's just be perfectly honest. They were still winning. They came out there and they did what they had to do, and guess what? They won at the end of the day. But now they've been trying to force feed it down his throat, and guess what? That's the reason. That's one of the reasons why they've been losing. Another reason is they're not able to articulate the ball down the field, regardless of trying to force feed him. They're not able to capitalize in a lot of situations. They're not. And They haven't scored over 21 points. They have not scored over 21 points since October.
That's shocking.
They have not scored over 21 points since October. So it's a lot of problems on this offensive side of the ball. Lack of creativity, lack of scheme, lack of utilization. And, like I stated, they're not able to capitalize on certain plays they've been doing at a certain point. There's no ball control because you can't generate, the running game like you used to last year. And the thing is this. I've said it before and I've said it again. When you came into this season, you know that everybody was going to crowd the box. You knew that everybody was going to crowd the box when it came to Saquon Barkley. You knew this. So why didn't you make the proper adjustments in order to make sure, hey, we're going to need to implement the play action just a little bit more because they're going to crowd the box. We just got a 2,000-yard rusher last year, and guess what? Everybody's looking to stop him first. So let's implement the play action just a little bit more. So when they start biting on him, guess what? We can go ahead and triculate it down the field. There's a lot of things that comes from having a great running back. Guess what? Saquon is not just good, he's great. But he can't be great when he's running against 8 in the box the entire time. Not even Walter Payton could be great during that point in time. He had problems when it came to running 8 in the box. That's how come he loved Jim McMahon, because guess what? Jim McMahon would see 8 in the box and immediately change the play. Immediately. So there has to be a lot of changes made, and they're too heavily reliant on that defense. Eventually, you keep your defense on the field too long, they're going to fail you eventually. They're going to fail you. If they're on the field for too long, they're going to fail you eventually because they're tired. So there's a lot to be there's going to be a lot to unpack during the offseason. I hope they're not on the way to an eventual collapse like they did the year before last, where they just made it and you just knew something was wrong. Last time it was because Jalen Hurts had interception troubles. This year it's because they just have trouble matriculating the ball down the field and scoring. And they just leave it. They're just trying to win ugly and leave it in the hands of that defense. And guess what? You can't win like the 2000 Ravens anymore. There used to be a time where that worked. You can't do that anymore. You have to be able to generate some type of offense. And that is what they're not doing. But like I stated, they haven't scored over 21 points since October. They haven't scored over 21 points since October. And if you need further evidence at this point, they only scored 7 points against the Packers. They only scored 16 points against the Lions. They only scored 21 against the Cowboys. And then today they only scored 15. So in the last month, they haven't scored but 21 points one time. That's how much trouble they've been having.
And special teams too, champ, because Jake Elliott is off to he's been struggling the last couple of games. You saw the missed field goal against the Dallas Cowboys, and he missed a field goal and an extra point against Chicago. So it's pretty uncharacteristic for one of the best kickers in Jake Elliott to miss those types of field goals and extra point under those types of circumstances, champ. But they slipping. They starting to slip more like Brock Lesnar on Monday Night Raw.
Yes,
That's
indeed.
how bad. I mean, you saw Brock Lesnar on Monday Night Raw when he slipped.
Yeah, fell dead on his buttock. And another thing they're doing, they're rendering. What did I say in the beginning of the season? A lot of teams are rendering the tush push useless.
You seeing that effect now?
Yeah, you're seeing it a little bit more. Look, when you're able to stop somebody's go-to play, you rendering it useless, because now instead of 3rd and 1, you are in 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7 territory a hell of a lot more. So that tush push don't work no more. And that's what I said at the beginning of the season. If you want to neutralize the tush push, if you want to neutralize it, render it useless. Because guess what? You're not doing a tush push on 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 10. You're not doing it then. So they're being forced on 3rd and long, a lot of long yardage situations rather than short yardage situations. So that's another reason why, they're not able to rely on the tush push to get them out of certain situations. So yeah, render it useless. Don't complain about it in the commissioner's office. Don't complain about it all over the place. Render it useless. How do you do that? You put them in third and long situations, and that's exactly what the Bears did today because guess what? It was rendered useless because guess what? You can't go for that on 3rd and 5. There's a lot to be desired for this Philadelphia team, man. And like I stated, all heads are going to roll, especially, and they better hope and they better pray that the Dallas Cowboys do not catch them in this division. They better hope and they better pray because guess what? I've said it before and I will say it again. 2 places where you can get your behind fired real quick. And that's Auburn University and in Philadelphia. And if the Dallas Cowboys just so happen to catch them and pass them and get the division lead, you might be seeing more than just the offensive coordinator getting fired.
See Nick Sirianni getting fired?
If that happens, yes. Because the thing is, you have to take control of that team. Hell, look what happened with Doug Peterson. They fired him less than a year after the fact. You mean to tell me that the same thing can't happen to Nick Sirianni?
Anything is possible, champ, but at the same time, I'm afraid they're still going to keep him, given what he's done. But when I look at the Eagles, a lot of problems. And again, I've said it before, champ. Correct me if I'm wrong. When is it that a team in that division has won it back-to-back years?
They haven't.
You got to go back to the early 2000s with the Eagles with Andy Reid. They did that in 03 and in 04, if I'm not mistaken. Because you look at Dallas right now, they have momentum. Ever since what happened with the death of Russell Soul, Marshawn Nealon, and with the trades, they're starting to play with momentum. They're now 3-0. Eagles, for whatever reason, to your point, champ, they haven't scored more than 21 points since October. And it seems to me they're trying to do too much for A.J. Brown because he's voiced his frustrations with not getting the ball, not getting his targets. I mean, even he had to talk with Jeffrey Lurie, the owner of the Philadelphia Eagles. And at this point, if I'm Philadelphia, I can't do any more to accommodate this dude. We traded. We did everything we could for him. We went to Super Bowls. We won a Super Bowl. Nice while it lasted. Now it's time for us to move on. As for the Eagles' offense, should they look at another running back to complement Saquon? Yes. Saquon will be 29 years old in February. So just in case, they should add another running back for Saquon. The Eagles' offensive line, losing Lane Johnson, that does hurt the team.
Mm-hmm.
And now with the defense is going to do its part to keep them in the game. But they are getting fatigued, champ. And when you keep them on that football field long enough, eventually it's going to wear out. The defense can't always save the day for you. I don't like the fact that Jalen Hurts is being used as the scapegoat. Now, granted, look, he's not the flashiest or prettiest quarterback in the world, but still in all, I can still count on him to get the job done. I think for him, after this season, he will be better because I think they'll get another wide receiver in the draft or whoever. I trust Howie Roseman, the best executive in football. They're going to move on from AJ. They'll get him a target for next season, and he can build a rapport with. Meanwhile, he can do what he does best. You don't have to ask Jalen Hurts to throw the ball 45 or 40 times. No. Let him use his legs. Let him throw the ball a good 20 to 25 times and just go from there. You mentioned before with Saquon, champ, running backs who've had 2,000-yard seasons, they regress the following year. You've mentioned that. Now, I still keep the defensive coordinator. I still keep the defense where it's placed. Vic Fangio has done his part for the most part this season. We can't discount that. I don't know if they're going to give up Nick Sirianni, but I do believe they're going to move on from Kevin Patola because I haven't seen that much creativity with the offense. And look, there have been times the offense has looked lackluster, and they've had leads, champ. Let's not forget they had a 14-point lead against the Denver Broncos early in the season. They blew that one. It's just too much frustrations with the offense. It's becoming a mess. And I think it's time, once this season is over, to clean up house. And Kevin Patola must go. A.J. Brown must be traded. As for the Eagles, I do think getting another running back to help out Saquon would be beneficial because you can't ask Saquon to give you another 2,000-yard season like that again. Saquon is still capable of giving you 13, 14, or 1,500 yards, but you can't heavily rely on him to do so much. So I think if you're the Eagles, if you're Howie Roseman, who I trust, you're going to make some moves with the draft. You may have to look at getting younger offensive linemen to help out this team. And you could get yourself some linebackers. And I do think you just need a better offensive mind. Once you have a better offensive mind, with this roster, I think the Eagles will be best suited. As far as with Chicago, yes, they're 9-3, but is this win an indication that they're going to make a deep playoff run, champ? Only time will tell, because I still have concerns with the offense, particularly with Caleb Williams. The defense has done okay, but I'm still not convinced yet. And plus, we got to wait until they play up against Green Bay, Detroit, and other teams in the playoffs. So only time will tell.
Yeah, but only time will tell. But right now they're winning. They're winning. So there's not a lot of dissension in that locker room about this, that, and the third, regardless of Caleb Williams struggling.
Well, that's because they're playing with house money and they're also playing with a new head coach, champ. And plus, no one, not even you and I, had high expectations for Chicago to go this far. There's nowhere to go but up, considering the year Caleb had last year. So ain't nowhere to go but up.
Yeah, but at the same time, guess what? I have at least 2 to 3 star wide receivers on this team, and a lot of this is geared towards the running game. You got to really, really think about that. A lot of this offense that Ben Johnson has is geared towards the running game. It was the same way in Detroit. And the thing is this, the difference between the two teams today is that the Eagles were stars on the teams, The Chicago Bears are a team, and that's a star. They're one. And they came out as one and they played like that. That's the biggest difference. You worried about the thing is, I remember something about Michael Irvin. Well, no, Darren Woodson. I remember an interview that Darren Woodson said that was profound. He said, although Michael Irvin wanted the ball and did all types of stuff in the media, did all type of showboat type of thing, he never called out his quarterback in the media in order to get him the ball. He said, if you said anything around Michael Irvin about Troy Aikman, see what happened to you. Michael Irvin would curse you out or say something about Troy Aikman around that offensive line or Emmitt Smith. They would curse you out. And the thing is, the funniest thing about that is the only time that Troy Aikman had 20 touchdowns is in his I think it was in the 92 season. He only threw for 20 touchdowns one time. And that's the difference between having a bunch of stars on a team and having a team that's a star. And the thing is, like I stated, right now, we're seeing a resurgence of the running game at this point. You're seeing a resurgence of it. You're seeing, guys being heavily relied on as far as the running game is concerned. Eventually, you're going to see running backs go, at least to the top 10. Again, we saw that again this year with Ashton Jeanty. Granted, they wasn't ready to take a running back of this caliber because they didn't have nothing else around them, but you're already seeing it. But if you're winning games when we're running the ball, we're articulating it down the field, we're running it, we're making sure that we get ball control and we're finishing up the game with our defense. And then when we're airing the ball out like a ceiling fan, you're seeing that we're losing, then there's a common denominator within that. And that's you complaining about the ball getting thrown to you. Now, what do you care about? Do you care about winning, or do you care about you getting your receptions? That's the thing. And that's what Darren Woodson touched on earlier in the week, the difference between Michael Irvin and a guy like A.J. Brown. Like I stated, when A.J. plays poorly and, when he doesn't get these targets and they don't have to force feed him, guess what? They end up winning games. And that's the difference. When you have a system in place and you're not as good as you were last year, the offensive coordinator is different, the chemistry is off, why would you keep going into the media and complaining about targets? You know
because
this offense is not the same as it was last year.
because eventually, champ, they don't care about that. They care about the stats and the numbers, and on top of that, they want to be justified with the contract that they paid. And to your point, champ, you mentioned Troy Aikman. The most touchdown passes he has thrown in his entire NFL career was 23 in 1992. He threw 23 touchdowns to only 14 interceptions in the year 1992. But champ, the reason why I have concerns with Chicago's offense with Caleb right now is because of his accuracy. He must improve on his accuracy with his footwork and his decision. That's the problem with Chicago's offense. Outside of that, I think Ben Johnson has done the best part to suit him by not asking Caleb to do too much and relying on the running game. And they have weapons around him with Courtland Loveland, with Cole Kmet, who BRF has constantly raved about, Rome Odunze, and DJ Moore. Chicago can be much better if Caleb Williams becomes more accurate as a passer. You can't even argue nor dispute that because you know what he provides as far as his running ability. But as it pertains to Philadelphia, champ, you have to trade AJ because I think for the betterment of Jalen Hurts, if I care about Jalen Hurts and if I want to do the best to help him out, I got to move on from AJ Brown and I got to go get him a younger wide receiver where he can build a rapport with. A one who doesn't have to constantly complain about not getting the football, who will do other ways in order for the team to win. I think if you're AJ, maybe he could go to New England, maybe the Chargers, some other team where he could play with a quarterback where he can get his numbers just to be in the conversation for the Hall of Fame. But for Philadelphia, their offense is too inconsistent. Way too inconsistent. I think you're asking way too much from Jalen Hurts. And I think with Kevin Patola, look, Jalen Hurts, I thought there were some throws he missed. The one behind Devontae Smith, that's on Jalen. I have to hold that on Jalen. You couldn't ask a better play call from Kevin Patola in that type of situation. Devontae was wide open, and Jalen misfired. And the interception on Jalen, that was on him. I thought Jalen at that point got a little too greedy. Then they scored a touchdown to A.J. Brown to put it 10-9. They missed the extra point. Okay, Chicago, Caleb Williams throws a turnover. That was an opportunity for you to come back and take a lead. And then the tush push, he fumbled. Teams are not even that worried or concerned anymore about the tush push because remember, champ, going back to the Giants-Eagles game, you saw Jalen Hurts fumble that football in that possession with that tush push. And plus, they're not worried or concerned about it anymore because lately we're seeing them false starts. And eventually it's going to catch up to him. Now, do I have a problem with the tush push being in place? No. But I do think moving forward, they're going to have to do a better job officiating. And so far, we're seeing with the Eagles with them false starts. But the Eagles, their problem is their offense. They're just too inconsistent. We don't know what type of Eagles offense we're going to have. We know what we're going to get from the defense. But you're asking your defense to do an awful lot to carry the load. And it's going to come a point in which they can't handle it anymore.
No.
And you're going to have to rely on other things. For Chicago, champ, still, yes, they're 9-3. But at the same time, they still got some work to do.
You got a lot of work to do. I think it starts and ends with Caleb. It starts and it ends with Caleb. And if he can make more accurate throws, which we know he's capable of, and not press himself too much, I believe that they're going to do fine. I mean, they have a couple of tests coming up in the next couple of weeks. If I can check my Palm Pilot real quick, they have a few tests coming up, that being the Chicago Bears. One second. They have the Browns defense coming up, which, that's not going to be an easy task, although their record may be light, but, next couple of weeks they have them.
They got the Packers.
They have the Packers next. Well, they have the Packers twice in the next 2 weeks, the
Yeah.
next 3 weeks. Then they have the Browns in between that. Then they have the 49ers and the Detroit Lions. So they're going to be tested these next couple of weeks, especially with these pass rushers that are coming to town. You got Aiden Hutchinson, Myles Garrett. You got Aiden
Michael
Hutchinson, Myles
Parsons.
Garrett, and Michael Parsons coming to town. So you're going to be tested these next couple of weeks. So you better be ready. You better be ready. Otherwise, you're going to be limping into the playoff rather than competing for a first round bye. But it starts and ends with Caleb. If he stops trying to force everything and what I like to call win a Heisman on every damn throw, I think they'll be fine.
As long as he doesn't, his problem is extending the play. He does hold on to the football a little too long, champ. That's another concern about him. Now, he's dynamic as a runner. He's dynamic as far as his athletic ability, but he needs to be more accurate. I believe he gives the Bears a better chance to win if he was more consistent as a passer. Because you look at that game, champ, you're not going to win too many games with your quarterback playing like that.
No, indeed not.
And if you look at the Eagles, they got the Chargers Monday night, December the 8th. Now, you look at the next 4 games, although relatively easy. Home game against the Raiders. On the road against the Commanders. Now, you can say whatever you want about the Commanders. It is the NFC East team. I should expect the Eagles to handle that one. Then they got the Bills on the second to last game. Actually, you could actually predict the Eagles to win that one because we don't know what the Buffalo Bills. We talk about the Eagles offense. What about the Bills offense? Because they ask too much from Josh Allen. You've often said you want James Cook to run the football more, and Josh Allen is going back to his turnover ways. And they finished the last game of the season home against Washington. So only time will tell. But you have to give credit where credit is due to Chicago. I thought their defense played well. Running game. When your quarterback is not playing that well at all, and when you can run the ball the way Mungai and DeAndre Swift did for 255 yards, each of them had over 100 yards rushing. Hey, may not be the most prettiest way to win, but still, it is
It's a
very
win.
effective.
Hey, how ironic that the Chicago Bears are 9-3 and are able to compete for the number 1 seed. And it is the 40th anniversary of the 85 Bears. It's the 40th anniversary of the 85 Bears. So you got to ask yourself, how ironic is it? Their defense is good. Their offense, inconsistent at times, but relatively good. And matter of fact, they just brought a documentary out about the Super Bowl shuffle as well. So it's so good to see the Bears, one of the historic teams in the NFL, doing good. Like I said, it's so good to see that they're 9-3 on the 40th anniversary of that Chicago Bears 85 team, which we're never going to forget that defense and Walter Payton, man. Rest in peace to the sweetness.
Yes, indeed. Champ, let's talk about the Chiefs and Cowboys. Very exciting offensive game. Champ, you can't ask more from Patrick Mahomes. I thought overall he played relatively well. 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. But Dallas's offense, Dak Prescott, another back-to-back over 300-yard game. CeeDee Lamb, they talking about George Pickens. Have y'all not forgotten who I am? 7 catches for 112 yards, a TD. That's why he's their number 1 wide receiver. And then, of course, we can talk about George Pickens. Very impressive win for Dallas. Like I said before, this is their 3rd consecutive win since the aftermath of Russell sold Marshawn Kneeland and with the trades of Quinn Williams and Logan Wilson. Dallas still has a very good chance to win the division, considering if the Eagles fall apart. They're still in the hunt for the playoff picture. Do I see Dallas making a deep playoff run? No. Because again, champ, their defense still gives me concerns, though. And what happens when you can't fix the defense and when the offense doesn't have a good enough performance? That's a concern that I have. As for Kansas City, what are we going to see from Kansas City? Could they make the playoffs? I don't know. I mean, they just beat Indianapolis, and that was really much of their defense for that win because they gave Mahomes an opportunity late in the game to get the job done against the Cowboys. Mahomes going back to his home state of Texas,
Yep.
and he played well, very well. 4 touchdown passes, a little under 300 yards. You can't ask a more efficient game from the offense, but the defense did not show up. And I just think, champ, with Kansas City, I've got some concerns. We got some concerns about some other teams in the AFC, but more importantly, I love what Brian Schottenheimer has done with this offense. He has done a fantastic job with this offense, with the weapons that he has, how well he's been doing with Dak Prescott. I still have concerns with the defense with Eberflus, but obviously with the trades of Williams and Logan Wilson, there was nowhere to go but up. And when you look at the Cowboys, now they got a big game Thursday night against Detroit, which is not an easy task. But I do think the Cowboys have a good enough chance to win that division. As for Kansas City, they're missing some key guys, particularly Joe Thuney, because he still has not allowed a sack. And that goes to show you what you said about quarterback and not throw behind his back. But at the same time, there are more other issues with Kansas City. And I think this season is not their year. I believe moving forward, they'll be better. But they have to address the needs. They have to address the offensive line. They need to address getting another tight end to help out Patrick Mahomes. They got to make sure players don't have any off-the-field issues. And they got to get some more players regarding the offense, particularly the running back position, because you can't ask Kareem Hunt at this point. And even though I like Pacheco, still, I don't know. So what do you think?
Number one, they got to address that offensive line, baby. They got to address that line. Look, man, look. It ain't pretty, but them big boys up front, they take care of a lot of problems that you ain't got to worry about when you ain't got them. Having a great offensive lineman is a hell of a problem to have. Ask Dallas back in the 90s. Hell, ask Dallas when Tony Romo was there. Ask them now.
2014 Dallas.
Exactly. So, look, man, Patrick Mahomes played a great game yesterday. You couldn't have asked more. But he's running for his life every single play. If it wasn't for his ability and his just natural smarts, I don't think the average quarterback could last in that offense because you've lost some of your big men up front. You lost your center and you lost your star guard. So it's just you got to fix that O-line, man, and you got to fix the running back position as well. You have to either you have to get a hell of a running back by committee up in there, or you need to get they should have just made the trade for Breece Hall. It just gave him a 3rd-round pick. I mean, I really believe they look. You ain't always got to bargain. You ain't always got to try to bargain. Guess what? When you see something good out there, rather than trying to catch it on sale, go ahead and pay full price for it. That way, you ain't got to scuffle in order to try to get it later on, because it's gonna hurt you if you don't get it. You can look how we say it down south. You can get very expensive real quick being cheap. It could get real expensive being cheap. And I believe they should have just went on ahead and just said, hey, man, we'll give you that 3rd-round pick for Breece Hall. I think that would have been great in order for them to have right about now. Would have been great. Man, do y'all realize, for the audience out there, how close we are to not seeing the top 5 quarterbacks in the playoffs this year? Do y'all realize that we're so close to not seeing Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson,
Josh Allen?
You know, the only one out of that top 5 that is probably a shoe-in in order to make it to the playoffs right now is Justin Herbert. And you got to wonder how long he's going to last with that offensive line problems that he's been having. So, especially with Joe Alt being out.
And Slater.
And Slater being out. But they was doing decent without Slater there because Joe Alt would, but now that he's out, you got to ask yourself how long it's going to last.
But with both Alt and Slater, champ, they obviously it's a much difference when the two of them are together on the field.
That goes back to my favorite saying, the quarterback can't throw on his back. Hey, man, look, you want to win, start with that O-line. Then bring in that quarterback. Quarterback can't throw on his back. Just being real. And I hate to keep repeating that, but we see it every day in the NFL.
Well, you may need to ask that for Atlanta with Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I agree with that because we're missing a lot of guys on the offensive line. But yeah, we're on the verge of not seeing the flagship quarterbacks, the most highest paid. We're definitely on the verge of seeing that this year. And you got to ask yourself, if we see that this year, is this a passing of the torch? Because all of the second-year guys are making it to the playoffs this year. When you think about Drake May, you think about Caleb Williams, when you think about Bo Nix, think about a lot of these guys that just came into the league, not to mention the reclamation projects that we see in the form of Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, just to name a few. And so we're on the verge of not seeing that. But Patrick Mahomes, this Kansas City Chiefs team, it's only so many Band-Aids that you could put on a wound before you start to bleed out. Earlier, I remember the last couple of years, we've been crediting Patrick Mahomes because he's been losing pieces and still managed to keep it up. Usually when you're on the Super Bowl run, you're adding pieces in order to be greater. They've been losing pieces. They lost Eric Bieniemy. They lost, Tyreek Hill. They've lost
Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
They lost him. They lost Sneed, L'Jarius Sneed. They lost a little bit of everybody, and they still been able to win. And then, here come the fire sale in the offseason when they lost Joe Thuney. And then the other offensive line. So there's a lot of stuff to be desired there. You can only take away so many pieces until, hey, you're just rendered helpless. You got to do what you have to do in order to keep teams together. Now, to his credit, Travis Kelce is playing out of his mind. He's playing out of his mind. But Patrick Mahomes is running for his life out there. He's getting hit a lot more than we've seen in previous years. That's why we see some of his struggles outside of yesterday's game. They have a lot of these to address. They have a lot of these to address, especially on that offensive line when you have a quarterback, a generational quarterback like Patrick Mahomes. You have to protect him. You have to protect your greatest asset. And in order to protect him, you have to get those big boys up front that know how to block and protect. As you said earlier, Joe Thuney, he left Kansas City. He in Chicago. He hasn't allowed a sack all year. You mean to tell me, although Caleb Williams isn't playing well, although Caleb Williams isn't playing above his potential, you mean to tell me that clean jersey doesn't matter? When you as a quarterback can have a clean jersey and go to the club the same night, you're grateful for that offensive line. So that offensive line is the main thing, the running back position. Look, I will say this. Rashee Rice is a very, very good wide out. Very, very good. But, you got to be on the lookout for him because of the character issues. Got to be on the lookout for him. So I would look at trying to make some upgrades at the wide receiver position to see if I could possibly get A.J. Brown. Because for all his antics, at least I don't have to worry about him off the field. So, no. If you put him in a situation where somebody could get the ball to him and air it out like a ceiling fan.
I know.
And with a coach like Andy Reid,
I know
who's known for dealing with troublesome players. you could possibly make that work. And I don't have to worry about him off the field with a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes.
But champ, big fella, we saw that with Terrell Owens. But Andy speaks very highly of him, and vice versa. But once Andy felt that T.O. reached a point where he got too far, particularly with Brad Childress, they had to send him home. So what if A.J. Brown, if you causing problems in Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid of all people, and
That's a big if, though.
that's a
big if.
So you
like
gotta factor that.
But if a guy like Patrick Mahomes has gotten it to lesser receivers than A.J. Brown. He's gotten it to Rashee Rice. He's gotten it to the other wide receiver that they have, Xavier Worthy, the speedster. He's getting it to Travis Kelce, regardless of him running for his life out there. You wouldn't take a chance in order to give him another chance in order to run to the Super Bowl? I would. Like I stated. And I know he's going to air it out like a ceiling fan in order to get him the ball. And Andy Reid is known for dealing with troubled players.
Big fella, I wouldn't, because I don't think receiver is not that much of a necessity for the offense. You know what they need.
That O-line.
Yes. Get yourself some O-line. And as far as with A.J. Brown, you gonna cause problems in Kansas City?
No, I'm not.
I'm not talking off the field, because we know A.J. Brown doesn't get into
on the field. I know I'm going to get the ball.
Yes, but what happens when you're not going to get the ball? There may be times we're not going.
I know I'm going to get the ball. It's a pass-heavy offense. I know I'm going to get the ball.
But what happens when you may not get the ball? I understand in Philadelphia, obviously, it's more of a run-first offense than pass-first offense. Kansas City, we all know because of Mahomes' ability. But for me, if I'm Andy Reid and if I'm Patrick Mahomes, I don't need that. As far now, if A.J. Brown, look, if we're gonna bring you on the team, you can't be complaining about not getting your targets one day, and you can't be talking about about going on Madden and this and that and causing problems or distractions for Kansas City. That ain't gonna fly. Now, Andy Reid, yes, I understand, champ, because of an offensive brilliant mastermind like Andy Reid. I would think that you need to worry more about the offensive line. You have said that. And I need to address the running back, because they need more help with the running back position than they do with the wide receiver position. And I need to get myself a young tight end, because I don't care how well Travis Kelce's been playing well these past couple of games. He's not going to be there for the long-term future. I would look at that tight end from Oregon if I'm Kansas City.
Yes, indeed. And if I'm looking at a tight end, if I'm looking at a running back, as far as Kansas City, I'm definitely looking at Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame, because there's a distinct possibility that I may end up with a top 10 pick. There's a distinct possibility, especially when me missing the playoffs, or I'm looking at that. Excuse me, sorry about that. Or I'm looking at that running back up there in Nebraska as well. Or if I'm looking to make a late round steal, I'm looking at Nathan Frazier down here in the red clays of Athens. I need to address that running back position, though, because I don't want my quarterback to have to do too much, even if he is one of the greatest of all time. Even if he is top 3 of all time, I don't want him to have to do way too much. I don't want for him to run for his life every single game in order for us to even stay within contention. And that's been the difference between last year and this year. Patrick Mahomes is running for his life out there. He's getting hit damn near every single play. I've never seen, Patrick Mahomes has taken some big hits, but I have never seen him hit as much as I've seen him get hit this year. Whether that be in the pocket or outside the pocket. He's been getting his ass mashed. So they have to address the offensive line. They have to address the tight end position, and you have to address the running back position, so you won't have to ask him to do too much. I mean, like I stated, I wouldn't mind, as you said, and I agree with you, it's a luxury for them to have a true number one wide receiver. But if I'm looking to get back to that glory that I once had, do I look at the Philadelphia Eagles situation and say, hey, I know my quarterback, he's top 3 all time. I know he's not going to have trouble getting A.J. Brown the ball. Should I take a chance? Hey, I took a chance on a lot of other players that were the cornerstones of this team. I took a chance on Tyreek Hill. I took a chance on Travis Kelce. He became a franchise player. Why not take a chance on an established player like an A.J. Brown? I've taken chances before. I've taken chances on a Deshaun Jackson. I've taken chances on LaShawn McCoy. I've taken chances on a Jeremy Maclin. If you look at all of the players that Andy Reid has taken a chance on, A.J. Brown falls within that category. I think that he can kind of fix that, especially when you have a quarterback that's going to air it out like a Patrick Mahomes.
But what's
But
the
that's not the
likelihood of them
primary.
trading him to Kansas City, champ? That's the
Hmm?
thing. What's the likelihood of them trading him of all places to Kansas City? You really think Philadelphia would actually trade him of all places to Kansas City? Probably
If they
some.
bargain him right, if they bargain him right with Howie Roseman, I guarantee you he will be ready to up him. If they
But
bargain him right for the right look, you may not want to sell your classic SL 500 Benz that you have out there in your driveway. You might not want to sell your Rolls Royce. But if somebody offer you $1 million to the 400,000 that you paid for it, you best believe that Rolls Royce is sold.
I'm not
That
taking that.
SL 500 is
I
sold.
am not taking that chance with AJ Brown. Just because it looks good, that doesn't mean I have to take it, champ. They need help with a lot of other issues, and you know that. They need help with the O-line. They need help with the running back. They need to add another cornerback to help out Trent McDuffie. They need help with that, and they could also use some help with Chris Jones. With Kansas City, I think there are more important needs to address than bringing in A.J. Brown. I believe the Patriots may take a chance on him. I believe that the Chargers may take a chance on him because the Chargers, they need more help with the wide receiver position to help out Lad McConkey.
Yes, I believe that. I believe him and AJ Brown will be a very good combination, especially with old lad from UGA, by the way, in the slot.
Yes, let him be more in the slot. Meanwhile, with AJ, he's your true number one. And plus, we know, and even though he's no Mahomes, Justin Herbert, we know he can sling that football as well too. But with Kansas City, I would not bring in AJ Brown because again, we know Mahomes is going to get him the ball, but his frustrations, we trying to win championships, and how are we supposed to do it? Even though AJ has won a championship, beat Kansas City, but at the same time, what's going to happen when things don't go his way?
That's valid.
He's going to throw. I mean, he's going to complain and stuff. And look, we saw Andy Reid work with Terrell Owens. It worked out great the first year, even though they didn't win the Super Bowl. But T.O. made first team All Pro. T.O. was balling before the ankle injury, and then everything else the following year. T.O. and Donovan, remember, T.O. wanted the new contract. Donovan didn't want to support him because he doesn't get involved with that type of stuff, but then end up backing up Brian Westbrook for a contract. Got no problem with Brian Westbrook. And remember, he had his issues with Brad Childress, and he had to be sent home.
Yeah. That's
So,
valid.
yeah, I mean, just like it's valid, I understand your point, champ, adding a number one target for Mahomes. That way they don't have to get someone in the draft and take time to learn right away. But I think for Kansas City, what do you want to do? And that is, you know what you have to do. You keep saying it yourself. Quarterback cannot throw behind his back. I can get all those types of ingredients, but if I don't have that offensive line to protect my quarterback, it's nothing.
Yes, indeed. But I agree with everything that you're saying. And the first one you got to get is the offensive line. You got to get that squared away. I would look at the draft to see what kind of running back that I can bring in. Like I stated, mainly I will look at the running back from Nebraska. I would look at Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame, and I would look at Nathan Frazier if I'm looking to make a steal in the draft. But I would not mind taking a look at, just taking a look at AJ Brown, just taking a look at him just to see what he can bring to the table that I don't already have. And I need another pass rusher because Chris Jones is getting old. He's getting up there.
Yes, there are a lot more other things that Kansas City needs to invest. Now, if he's available, now Philadelphia, they're not going to get a first round pick for an AJ Brown. Probably what, a third, fourth,
second at best. At best,
probably a third for me.
Yeah.
I'm being conservative when I said third or fourth. I mean, you could argue a second.
Yeah, that's second at best.
But I don't know. Like, what are you? I mean, how much draft compensation they're gonna get for AJ Brown? They're not getting first round, maybe a second or a third round. Leave it at that. But my thing is, if I'm Kansas City, I go back to what I need to do best. I need to take care of my investment, and that's Mahomes. Dak Prescott as well too, champ. He's been playing well. 25 touchdowns, only 8 interceptions. He's second in the NFL in touchdown passes, only behind Matthew Stafford. George Pickens has stepped in tremendously for the Cowboys. He's 7th in receptions, 2nd in receiving yards. He's 3rd in touchdown receptions. He's having an excellent season, definitely deserving of Pro Bowl. And if he keeps this up, hey, we may see first team All Pro. Just saying, because again, he's in the top 10 in receiving yards, touchdowns, and receptions. As we speak, he is projected to have 103 receptions for over 1,600 yards and 11 touchdowns. And from your Georgia Bulldogs.
Yes, indeed. Jerry, listen to me. If you smart, and you really serious about winning, go ahead and sign George Pickens and stop bull jiving. Go ahead and sign him. Don't let it leak into the offseason. Go ahead, get him signed. Ain't no sense of delaying it. You see how much chemistry him and Dak Prescott has. You see, look, his presence alone keeps people the hell off of CeeDee Lamb. It keeps people off of him.
Now, he's somebody that Kansas City may take a look at, champ.
Yeah. And look, and he's had his share of character issues, but you see, but that goes back to my point. Dak Prescott is able to do what? Get him the ball.
Yes,
and but air it out like a ceiling fan.
But would you rather go with someone older or younger?
I would rather go with someone younger. But he's had his share of character issues as well. He had his character issues coming out of Georgia. He had his character issues coming out of Pittsburgh with the nasty attitude. He's had his problems as well.
But any off-the-field issues as far as legal issues, A.J. Brown has none of that, and neither has George Pickens as far as we know.
Yeah. You know, he had some history with the bad attitude, you know, him clashing with the offensive philosophy, much like. But the minute you got him around somebody with some structure that knew how to get him the ball, and if you really, really look at it, he's become more the number one receiver than CeeDee Lamb. The chemistry that they had while CeeDee was out was magnificent.
Yes.
Magnificent. So, yeah, he got around somebody, and they had the offensive philosophy that they were going to air it out like a ceiling fan. And mind you, this is Brian Schottenheimer, Marty Schottenheimer's guy. The running game's even better up under him. They about to have a 1,000-yard rusher this year. They have the capabilities of running the ball. So they need to go ahead and get George Pickens signed. Go ahead. Don't delay it. Don't allow him to go anywhere near free agency. Go ahead and pay him. Go ahead and pay him, especially if you're able to make a deep playoff run.
But if it's Dallas, and if Dallas, this is,
nobody expected them to go anywhere in the first place.
Wait a minute, Chip. I've been trying to tell you, when is it a team in that division that's gone back-to-back years? I've told you before. I picked Dallas, and the reason why, plus with CD and George Pickens, Dak Prescott doesn't have to constantly rely on CD. That way you can rely on George Pickens. And when CD went down with the injury, guess what? George Pickens. Guess what? Jake Ferguson. Guess what? Brian Schottenheimer. Ron Scheinheimer, to his credit, has done a good job with the offense. The biggest concern with Dallas all along has been their defense. And
Yes.
plus, we talk about George Pickens. Yes, he's had attitudinal issues, but you have constantly lamented Pittsburgh, Mike Tomlin, Santonio Holmes, Claypool, Juju, Antonio Brown. A pattern?
Yeah. And you notice, look, and you keep proving my point for me. Once they got around somebody that can get them the ball, they were straight. Juju, once he got around Patrick Mahomes, did you hear him complaining anymore?
Well, he finally stopped complaining when he started to get his act together.
Okay. And, the only out of all of those guys that you named, the only one that is just still he just was over the edge and just stayed over the edge, God bless him, is Antonio Brown. God bless him, is Antonio Brown. When Santonio Holmes, he went to New York, he was straight. When Juju went out there to Kansas City, he was squared away. He even stopped doing TikToks.
Yes.
You ain't heard about him doing no TikToks anymore.
But what did you also say? Jerry, if you're smart.
If he's smart, he's gonna
Jerry's
wait. He's gonna play the drummer roll. You know how Jerry is. He kind of like, look, he kind of like, kind of like your granddaddy when he walk into the room. He gonna find something for you to do, although everything done. But he gonna play the whole drama role, which I'm hoping that he's not. I mean, I think that he really needs to see, look, I got this team in good position in order to win for at least the next 2 to 3 years with Dak at the helm while this contract is still on. Let's go ahead. Let's keep these weapons around him, and let's build a defense in the draft. You already have cornerstones. You already have 2 hellified defensive tackles, Quentin Williams and Kenny Holmes. You have, good pass rushers. They may not be what Michael was, but they're pretty decent. The only thing you really have to fix is the back end, that being the cornerback position and the safety position, because the corner, Bland and Trayvon Diggs, yeah.
Kenny Clark, you were referring to, champ. Kenny Clark. You say Kenny Holmes.
Kenny Clark. My bad. Not Kenny Holmes. Kenny Clark. Thank you for correcting me. I appreciate that.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, so I already got 2 hellified defensive tackles. I have a little bit of pass rush by committee going on. I just got to fix the back end. But this offense, I have every capability to be just like Alvin Harper, and it has the capability of being like Alvin Harper and Michael Irvin was. You have 88 and you have number 3. I mean, and 3 is the speedster. He was brought in. I mean, the whole thing was everybody was criticizing Jerry at the beginning. They're not doing so much of that now. And look, nobody expected Dallas to do anything once that trade was made at the beginning of the season. Nobody.
Actually,
Everybody thought
the season. I kind of did, though, champ.
You did, but you're the New Jersey Genius. We're not talking about the New Jersey Genius. We're talking about everybody else. All the talking heads on television. Speaking. Yeah, we're talking about all the talking heads on television. You smarter than a lot of those guys. We're talking about what conventional wisdom was. You got it right. You kept telling me about it. Because like I said, my mom's a Dallas Cowboy fan. You kept telling me, look, watch out. Don't jump to conclusions real quick. But the thing is, by conventional wisdom, nobody expected anything of Dallas this year, not to mention that rough start they got off to. Then you had that tie where Jerry Jones made that very, very creepy remark that he made once that tie was done. And, very creepy. And, yeah, nobody really expected anything of him this year. Nobody really expected anything. So, because the minute that trade was made, everybody was talking about the season's over. Oh, they're dumb. Oh, Jerry don't know what he's doing. He's gone senile. They were talking. There was a lot of conversations around Jerry and this team. Now that they was able to get some big boys up front, they were able to get George Pickens. And now that this offense is coming into one unit, yeah, I can see them making a little bit of noise. Now, are they going to go to the NFC Championship? No. That's just like asking me not to eat the tomahawk steak. That's not going to happen. But the thing is, can I see them winning a playoff game and going on the road and upsetting somebody?
Why did you have to mention food? You could have just said that's like you not trying to make a move on Nia Jax.
Well, I look. Let's keep it clean. I don't want to make nobody mad, but yeah, you gotta look. They can make some noise in the playoffs. They may not make the NFC Championship. I'm not going to take it that far, but I think they have the capability of going on the road and winning a playoff game. But like I stated, nobody outside of you. Like I said, you're different. You're in the New Jersey Genius. You was telling me about that. I was pretty crazy. I was like, why are they trading them for? That's kind of weird. But you was like, hey man, slow your roll. You just don't know. They might be making some other moves. But yeah,
Because I think with Brian Schottenheimer, even though I was dumb shocked when they hired him as the head coach, although I was more dumb shocked when they hired Matt Eberflus as the defensive coordinator, given how I mean, come on, champ, he was that bad in Chicago too.
he was terrible in Chicago. But
But
the
but
thing
but
is, the personnel was kind of bad when he first got to Dallas. I'm pretty sure he was expecting to have Micah Parsons there,
but
not
yeah,
some of these other guys.
but Brian Schottenheimer, but I believe adding George Pickens would help because even though he has attitudinal issues, but Dak is obviously a better quarterback than any quarterback that you can name off the Pittsburgh Steelers roster. Which is why they're gonna have to figure out a way. They got to get themselves a quarterback after this season. I don't care. Like I said, I told you, champ. You put Aaron Rodgers with George Pickens. You know their attitudinal issues, and Aaron Rodgers is not the quarterback of old. So put him in Dallas. Put him with a guy like Dak. Dak, at this point, he's advanced as a passer compared to early on in his career. Plus, it does help out CD. Now, don't get it twisted, champ. CD is still their number one target. And CD still can play at a high level.
Yes.
But adding in George Pickens takes pressure off of CD. I'm more impressed with the running game from Dallas. That's what I'm more impressed about with Dallas. And on top of that, I'm more impressed with Brian Schottenheimer in terms of his way of leading. Their biggest kryptonite is the defense. Even with the two defensive tackles, champ, if they're going up against a team and they're going up against Detroit, and hope for the Cowboys. I don't wish injury, but Amon-Ra St. Brown, he suffered that ankle injury on that Thanksgiving game against the Packers. They better hope they not be dealing with him. And you know what Jameson Williams can do as far as taking the top off defense.
Yeah.
All they need to do is try to figure out a way to put pressure on Jalen Hurts. Oh, I'm sorry, Jared Goff in the pocket. Because when he doesn't have a clean enough pocket, and when you're asking him to make throws off platform, it's trouble for Detroit.
Yes, indeed.
But speaking of Detroit, let's talk about the Packers Lions game. Micah Parsons becomes the first player in NFL history 5 consecutive seasons with double-digit sacks. I mean, 2.5. He was impactful in that game, champ. Jordan Love, one of the reasons why I picked the Packers over the Lions, I just think you look at Jordan Love's numbers in Thanksgiving, he plays well. I think for Detroit, am I concerned? Yes. I mean, I didn't even watch the full game, unfortunately. I had to go back and watch some highlights of it. But, champ, I feel like with Green Bay, they know this is it. Because there have been frustrations with Love and LaFleur. I feel like Matt LaFleur has gotten too much criticism from time to time. He's proven he's a good enough head coach. And if Green Bay foolishly lets go of him, I would like to see him in Atlanta. He has ties in Atlanta. I think for Green Bay, they got to show they got to make a playoff run. Plus, it also does help when Josh Jacobs comes back. But, man, when Jordan Love has targets, particularly Christian Watson, who can also take the top off the defense as well. He's their X factor of the team. And when he plays efficiently, Packers have a good enough chance of winning. What are your thoughts from the Packers-Lions game?
I loved it. I loved it. And they neutralized a lot of their offensive weapons on that side of the ball as far as defense was concerned. They're a very, very complete team, man. And Michael Parsons, like I stated, he's this generation's Derek Thomas. I will never ever take anything away from him. Now he ain't no Myles Garrett, but then again, who is? But yeah, he is definitely doing his job. And he got off, and I don't think people understand this. He got off to that slow start because he was hurt. Got off to the slow start because he was hurt.
And
He
out
was
of
very
shape
much hurt.
because remember he was holding out for the contract extension, so you
Yeah.
can't expect him right away to make an impact just like that. But lately he's starting to look like the old Michael Parsons, healthier now.
Yes, indeed. In the second half of the season. So Jordan Love, man, good job. Good job. Hell of a job, man. 4 touchdowns.
And no
Can't
turnovers.
no turnovers. No turnovers. I when he turned that ball over, I want to call him the Black Brett Favre so bad because sometimes those be some bad bonehead interceptions. It's like, what the hell are you doing? But look, I'm excited about this team. It's not pretty all the time, although Jordan Love can put up these gaudy stats, although the defense can put it's still not pretty. It's still that gritty football, that gritty up north football. But I'm excited about this team. I can't wait to see if I doubt it. I doubt it. I doubt it. I can't wait to see if late in the season, if Micah is gonna give Miles a run for that defensive player of the year, if they'll give him a run for it. I don't think so. I doubt it, like I said. But depending on the record they made, depending on the sack ratio and
They'll
the record,
probably
they
give it
might
to
consider it.
Micah because of the record.
Yeah, they might give it to him because of the record. But even if, look, I don't have no problem with somebody from a losing team getting defensive player of the year because we've seen it happen with Michael Strahan. We saw it happen with Cortez Kennedy, back in, I think it was 92 when he was playing for the Seattle Seahawks. They went 2-4. They went 2-14 and he won defensive player of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that was how dominant Cortez Kennedy was. God rest his soul. I remember I wanted to play defensive tackle just like Cortez Kennedy before I switched to offensive line. But
You're talking about the year Michael Strahan back in 01 had 22 and a half sacks and won Defensive Player of the Year.
yeah.
I think, champ, the only way Myles Garrett wins it is that he breaks the record.
Yeah, he has to break the record if he wants to. But I believe if they come up, especially if they're able to overtake and get that number 1 seed as far as the Green Bay Packers are concerned, and he gets like 20 sacks, Micah, I really think that he'll give him a run for it. But like I stated, I have no problem if Myles Garrett, because the eye test is there, the stats are there and everything. I have no problem with him getting defensive player of the year on a losing team. Like I stated, we saw it before with Strahan and Cortez Kennedy. God rest his soul.
Well, Michael Parsons is on pace to have 17 and a half sacks. So I think if Green Bay, if they make a top 2 seed, I mean, right now Chicago's leading the NFC North, but not for long because, again, you previously mentioned, you look at their last couple of games, which is no joke because they got the 49ers and they got some other games. But Green Bay's got to face Chicago twice.
Mm-hmm.
But if Michael really wants to make a strong case for defensive player, and he definitely has that chance, he's going to have to go on full rampage mode. But for Detroit, champ, I don't know. I know it's only been 3 years with Dan Campbell, but do you starting to feel like until they make some changes, Dan Campbell at some point, look, the mistakes he made in that Philadelphia game, constantly relying to go for it on 4th down every single time, which I don't mind you going for it from time to time, but if you know if it ain't working, why try something else? You always say the definition of insanity, doing something more than once and expecting a different result. But with Dan Campbell, do you think Detroit, what changes do they need to make?
Stop gambling all the damn time. Stop. Dan Campbell, have you not learned your lesson from years? Have you not learned your lesson? What's your learning curve? A flat line? I mean, remember that game? I forget the game that it was. I forget the team it was again. Remember, they went for it 3 times. The first time they went for it, they got a penalty. Second time they went for it, they got a penalty. Third time they went for it, they got a penalty. And he still would kick the damn field goal.
You talking about the 49ers in the NFC Championship game?
Yes. I
know, and I've made that point, but shout out to Broad, shout out to Sports Talk. Last word, they said, well, their field goal kicker wasn't a good enough field goal kicker in the first place. And besides, you've went this far going for it constantly. Why stop? But it was
Yes.
going to come back and bite you, though.
Yeah, but I'm gonna just be real. If I walk out I'm gonna just be real. If I go for something if I go to the kitchen my first time and somebody throws something at me, and then I back up. And then I go to the kitchen another time, somebody throws something at me, and I back up a second time. That is my sign. Stop going towards the damn kitchen. That's the thing. If I go to the kitchen, if I walk toward my kitchen 3 times and somebody is in there throwing rocks at me, clack, and I avoid it. Clack, and I avoid it. Clack, and I avoid it. Eventually, if I keep trying to go near that kitchen, I'm going to get hit with a rock. So that was the thing. Trying to go for it all the time. I understand you want to be the gambler and you want to play to win and not play not to lose. You want to be able to say, I'm going in for the kill. But you have to understand situations. I understand Detroit hasn't had a lot of success since Wayne Fonts. I get it. But there comes a point where you have to understand, look, I have to play textbook football at a certain point. You're not going to cheat the game. I don't care who you are. You're not going to cheat the game. So you can go for it until the cows come home. If it doesn't work, then you're going to end up being the GOAT. And I'm not talking about the greatest of all time. So, yeah, you stop going for it. If you see an opportunity to not leave points on the board or not put yourself in bad field position, don't do it. You're going to die a lot more times than you're going to live in those situations. So I understand you wanting to go for it, be aggressive, let's do it. But understand what they're putting you. You're losing a lot of close games that you're really supposed to win when you leave points off the board that you really shouldn't have got. When you put yourself in bad field position because you want to go for it or give the other team good field position, do you realize how much that affects the team? Now you have to make up for that deficit once again when all you had to do was either punt, kick the field goal. Hey, you gotta play textbook football. The game will not be cheated.
I agree. I just think that Detroit, Dan Campbell has to realize, and plus, too, he has to be more cognizant. If you know if it's not working multiple times, shouldn't you be wise enough to say, nah, let's go with something else? And that's also what cost you in that game against Philadelphia a few weeks ago.
Yeah. Like I said, if I keep walking towards my front door and somebody is in there throwing rocks at me and I keep avoiding it, and I'm seeing this dude throwing rocks, why do I keep walking to the front door? Either climb out the window or walk out the back. It's just that simple. So you got to stop. And the thing is, you don't have to. 9 times out of 10, when he's in those situations, he's in position in order to not leave points on the board.
Yes. Fair enough. Champ, I picked Baltimore to beat the Cincinnati Bengals, but man, 32-14. It was Joe Burrow's first game back since week 2. Rusty, but still in all, a win is a win, champ. Some mistakes here from Lamar, the interception, the Isaiah Likely fumble before he crossed the plane. Should we be concerned with Baltimore, champ?
A little, I will say that, because the thing is, this is an opportunity for you to go to the playoffs. You need to understand the assignment and understand what's on the line, because only one team is going to make it out of that division in the AFC North. Is going to be either you or Pittsburgh. And if you don't make the playoffs this year, it's going to be some smoke in the city about, John Harbaugh. There's going to be some smoke in the city behind that. And people were already clamoring for him to be fired earlier in the year, saying that he's not the guy that he was when he won with Joe Flacco. A lot of things. They've changed offensive coordinators, they've changed defensive coordinator, and they've still been able to be consistent, but they haven't been able to get back over the hump. So there's been a lot of talk about that throughout the year about him being fired. So, look, number one, you got to take care of the football. Number two, there's been some injuries on this offensive line. The offensive line is not what they used to be. You can't really blame the defense, because if you look at the eye test, they bailed Lamar Jackson out after that fumble that they had in their own red zone. They bailed him out.
And for the most part, those past couple of games since Lamar Jackson came back and before early in the year, they were doing a solid job with the defense because we
Yeah,
saw the defense got exploited by the Chiefs and the Texans.
yeah. And Lamar has not been doing good. Granted, he's been hurt, and that's like how I asked the question on TikTok. I don't know if you saw the video earlier about has he peaked? Because the thing is, you see this a lot with a lot of running quarterbacks. You saw with Cam Newton when he started getting hurt, that explosiveness is no longer there. You saw Randall Cunningham after he had his magnificent season. You saw it with Steve McNair. Once those running quarterbacks start getting hurt, it take them a few years in order to get their footing back, especially when their extremities are being affected. So you got to ask yourself, has he peaked at this point? And is the window closing a lot faster than we thought it was going to in Baltimore?
Do you think you've
Because
asked that question with Josh Allen?
yes, you would ask that question with Josh Allen. I with all of these running quarterbacks in the league right about now, especially when you think about the punishment that Josh Allen has been taking, the fact that they don't use James Cook, you got to ask your questions about him and Josh Allen. They
Well,
don't run
no,
the ball. And the thing is, they don't run the ball with James Cook like they were supposed to.
they don't. And you saw the formula for last season and how it was conducive. And I don't think they need a true number one wide receiver champ Buffalo. They just need to just focus on spreading the ball when Josh Allen throws the ball and just handing the ball off to Cook. The thing is with Baltimore, it's no surprise, champ. Running quarterbacks, dual threat quarterbacks, run themselves to a lot of collision, and eventually it's going to come back and hurt them later down the road when they get older. So for Lamar, I still want him to use his legs, but just be careful. You have Derrick Henry for the next year or two. Why not use that? And you also have Justice Hill. So, and plus you have Todd Monken from UGA, a brilliant offensive mind.
Yes, indeed.
So they're going to do something, but I still believe they should be the team to win in that division because I can't trust the Steelers at this point. I mean, their defense, I don't know what word could I use. And plus, can you trust Aaron Rodgers at this point?
Can you trust any? Can you trust any of those quarterbacks that they got on the field? You really can't. And do you really trust Arthur Smith? No.
No,
I
but you
mean,
expect the Steelers to have another 500 season. Maybe they make the playoffs, maybe not. Only time will tell. But I think Baltimore, look, that was a tough loss. That was a win that you should have handled, but you didn't. Joe Burrow, to his credit, even though he didn't play, he looked rusty, but still, I thought it was enough for them to win. You got to give credit to Baltimore, Cincinnati, especially what they've done defensively. You only held that team to just 14 points. And we know how putrid their defense is. Jamar Chase had a big time game, first game back since the suspension, 7 catches for 110 yards. So you got to tip your hats off to Cincinnati.
good job, Cincy. Y'all took advantage of the opportunity, and that's what you're supposed to do.
All right,
job.
champ. Let's go to our picks. Let's try to keep it real short and quick. This is an interesting one right here. 49ers at Browns. I'm gonna go with Cleveland. Because you saw what
everybody know what I'm talking about.
Cleveland. Because what type of performance am I gonna get from Brock Purdy? You saw what happened last week against the Carolina Panthers when he threw 3 picks.
Yeah. So
and
you
plus
just
Myles Garrett.
Myles Garrett. Yeah, I was just about to say that. Great Myles Garrett is gonna be on him like right on rice, a glass of milk, a paper plate in a snowstorm. So yeah.
And I tried to tell you, Mac Jones isn't as bad as a quarterback as people thought, huh?
Yeah, you did. That's why I call you the New Jersey Genius.
Mm-hmm. And I think with Shedeur, look, you know that the 49ers, their back end They don't have the best back end in the world.
No.
But you may want to try to exploit that if you're Cleveland. Fool him out with some play action. Try to get him some deep balls to either Jared Judy, as long as he can catch the football. I mean, he did have that one big play, and then he fumbled, and I'm like, God, Lee.
I hate because he want to act like a clown. That's the reason why. Do your job.
I'm going to go with Cleveland with the upset. Jaguars versus Titans, champ. Jaguars are a 6-point favorite.
The Jaguars. I say the Jaguars.
Okay. Another interesting one. Texans at Colts. And remember, Daniel Jones, keep in mind, is playing with reportedly a fractured fibula.
Ooh. Lord have mercy.
You heard that, Chip?
Yeah, I heard about that. I don't know. Ooh. I don't know how he's standing up. So I don't know. Maybe it's not the weight bearing bone. So I'm hoping that. Yeah, I hope you don't get yourself hurt out here. But
Do you think they should throw in Anthony Richardson?
yes, for this game, I wouldn't risk getting Daniel Jones hurt. Now look, put him in, see what he can do against this, see what he can do, see what he has learned, sitting on the bench. But look, a broken fibula, a fractured fibula, bro, that can not only put you out of action for a long period of time, that can put you out of action for good.
I wouldn't play him.
So the thing is, I understand what you're saying, but do I want to put Daniel Jones at risk knowing that I got a hell of a chance in order to make the playoffs, knowing that I'm going to need him to air that ball out like a Steelers fan? Where do you want to depend on Anthony Richardson? Do you want to depend on him in the regular season game right about now? Do you want to have to depend on him in the playoffs because we don't have our quarterback here?
But at the same time, do you want to jeopardize Daniel Jones's career? And plus, you saw the blueprint. Run the ball. You told Buffalo what they were supposed to do. Run the ball. James Cook had 17 carries for 116 yards and a touchdown against the Houston Texans last week. What do you think Jonathan Taylor could do?
Hey, run and gun. But at the same time, like I stated, if I know I'm going to have a run-heavy scheme, I wouldn't mind sending out Anthony Richardson for a game or two, especially if I know I'm going to need Daniel Jones in the playoffs.
That's why I would put in Anthony Richardson in this game. I'm not putting in Daniel Jones just to jeopardize my
I'm not
chances.
putting in Anthony Richardson in this. I'm putting in Anthony Richardson, excuse me. I'm agreeing with you on that because I'm not risking Daniel Jones because I know if I make it to when I make it to the playoffs and I'm the division leader, eventually I'm going to have him air it out. So
okay. Saints at Dolphins. You gonna pick the Saints?
Never. We're gonna go to Dolphins. You picking no damn Aints?
I'll go with Miami. Falcons at Jets. Forever I love Atlanta.
Forever I love Atlanta.
Imagine if you lose to the Jets.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, but imagine if they lose 30-10 or something like that.
That wouldn't surprise me. It really
but you would be pissed though.
I mean, it's more like this. It's more disappointed than pissed at this point. Like I stated, man, having look, having Atlanta as your favorite team is kind of like having a relationship with your sneaky links. You know she's gonna disappoint you, so it's gonna end bad. So you hoping that she come through, but if you get that text saying you gonna be mad, then you just gotta accept the consequences.
All right. Cardinals at Buccaneers. Tampa's a 3.5-point favorite. Baker did suffer that injury against the Rams, but I think the Cardinals should bounce back. I'm sorry, the Buccaneers should bounce back. I apologize. Buccaneers should win this one.
The Yucks. I got you.
Vikings at Seahawks. Seahawks are 11.5-point favorite.
JSN gonna get 250 yards this game.
220. Bills at Steelers. Buffalo's a 3-point favorite.
Let James Cook for 150 yards.
I'm going to go with the Steelers. Raiders at Chargers.
San Diego Superchargers.
No surprise there. Broncos at Commanders.
Sorry,
and Patrick
PSP.
Surtain will come back in this one.
Oh, yeah, definitely the Broncos. Sorry, PSP.
No, that's fine. I'm actually happy because, again, Washington can focus on tanking and hopefully get some offensive linemen to protect Jaden Daniels. Like I said, I do not want him back on that football field.
No.
Send him out for the remainder of the season. That's about it. The team is a wash to begin with. And Monday Night Football, you got the Giants at the Patriots. New England is a 7-point favorite. I have New England. Jackson Dart will come back from injury, but I do think New England should win this one 24-13.
Let's see. Yeah, New England, the Patriots, they should win.
All right. Now, for my favorite topic on the Sports PSP podcast, Babyface Heel. Now, for those who may not know what Babyface Heel means in wrestling language or terminology, Babyface is a good guy, a heel is a bad guy, and a tweener is someone in between Babyface or heel. So, I come up with a list of athletes or celebrities that me and the panel, we're going to decide whether they are a Babyface, heel, or tweener. First one, The Claw, Kawhi Leonard. Tweener. He's a tweener. You can't disregard what he accomplished in San Antonio, nor what he accomplished in Toronto by winning the championship, including the game-winning Game 7 shot against the Philadelphia 76ers. Sorry, Broad. But at the same time, he doesn't have the greatest personality in the world, although I do like his laughter from time to time. Or when he says, "What it do, baby?" Tweener, because again, they look at him as the epitome of load management. He's going to come in, he's going to have an outstanding game, but you don't know whether he's going to play back-to-backs, so-and-so. He's not going to play an amount of games. He's probably going to miss, 20 to 25 games. And, of course, remember the situation he had earlier this season, champ, whether I think it was Pablo Torre who reported.
Pablo Torres, yeah.
Remember, Kawhi Leonard, he allegedly got paid to do nothing. Allegedly.
Yeah, a fake endorsement.
Right.
So they could circumvent the salary cap.
Right. So I look at tweener with Kawhi Leonard because he's not the type of person that you really want to hear regarding press conferences, things of that nature. Although it's kind of funny, though, when you listen to his laughter. He's not big on social media. I mean, he has the New Balance shoes. I would say tweener.
I'll say babyface. A lot of stuff that happened throughout his career is not really his fault, with the exception of that whole situation with him and the Clippers. The injuries were not his fault about when things fell apart in San Antonio. Eventually, he ended up, I think he almost ended up suing the team doctor because of that injury. I don't really think that was his fault, the way things ended pretty badly. I just think that it's just a bad situation to where they're reserving him and having that load management because they're afraid something might crack. You'll say something might break. He hasn't been the healthiest. He hasn't been fully healthy in a good while. As far as his personality, I mean, he's not on social media. Outside, you really have to, let's just be real. You got to come up with a story in order to hear about Kawhi Leonard. You got to talk about the load management. You got to talk about, if that story would have never came out about, the team trying to circumvent the salary cap, you probably wouldn't have even guess what? What other bad things have you heard about Kawhi Leonard other than how humble he is, how he still drives that 98 Chevy Tahoe even after he got a max contract because it's paid for. You really hear about him doing things within the community, within the Los Angeles community. I really think a lot of perception of Kawhi was kind of twisted because of the commercial that we saw, the New Balance commercial. The minute that he came in, him and Paul George came to the Clippers, you
You
saw
the
the
key
car
one.
key frown on it because he wanted to be the king of LA, but unfortunately the only thing that people could really say about Kawhi is when he came to LA as far as the Los Angeles Clippers were concerned, he didn't live up to the hype. And look, his body, look, you can't help outside of keeping yourself in shape and keeping yourself in the best shape possible, you can't help how your body is going to react to certain things. I can help me not being in shape. I can't help my body betraying me. So outside of that, I understand he's the face of load management, but that's because there's like, look, if we play this dude back to back and try to play him every game, he's not going to make it throughout the full season. And had they known that, would they have given him a max contract? Who knows? But you really don't hear about a lot. The only thing I would say about Kawhi is he didn't live up to the hype as far as being the new king of LA because they expected him to come in and, compete with LeBron and, open up that new stadium with a championship along with Paul George, along with a lot of other guys. They expected that. And they kind of got a popcorn fart in church when it comes to that. I think the furthest they ever made was the Western Conference Finals during the bubble.
And
And
he
then
got
now,
hurt in
and
the
he got,
semifinals against the Utah Jazz, and it took every bit of Paul George, Patrick Beverly, Terrence Mann, and other players from the Clippers roster to continue.
yeah.
And remember, before that year, champ, let's not forget they blew a 3-1 lead in the bubble.
Yeah, they really, when Doc Rivers your coach, that's going to happen.
But it wasn't just Doc Rivers, champ. Kawhi Leonard didn't also play particularly well too. Neither did Paul George.
Yeah.
And we all know Magic Lou Williams. Remember during the bubble, he made the news for Magic City.
Yeah, eat them lemon pepper wings. Lemon pepper Lou. Lemon pepper Lou. Eat
But
that lemon pepper catfish. But outside, look, like I said, you really have to find a story about Kawhi in order for you to hear about him. And
actually, I found one right here, champ. Remember the report from The Athletic
mhm,
during 2020? These were several key. I'm reading an article here. According to an investigative report by The Athletic in December 2020, several factors contributed to a perceived lack of buy-in from the rest of the Clippers roster. The influence on schedule. Both Kawhi Leonard and Paul George had power over the team's practice and travel schedule. Teammates believed Leonard in particular was responsible for canceling multiple practices. The other, game participation. There was a belief among other players, that the two stars were able to, quote, pick and choose when they played, opting to sit out certain games or limit their playing time in the moment. Personal staff. Leonard and George were the only players on the team to have their own personal security guards and trainers. Media availability. The Stars typically did not speak to the media until at least 45 minutes after games, often citing post-game treatment or workouts. This left other players to handle the bulk of the media obligations and logistics. Leonard reportedly, who lived in San Diego, which at times led to delays in the team flights. So you could hold that against Kawhi Leonard if that report is, however, true. And
mhm,
again, even though Kawhi Leonard was coming off that championship year in Toronto, and this is his first year with the team, this is actually the first time for the Clippers to have this type of superstar. But at the same time, if you're Kawhi, you should have done your part to build chemistry with this team so that you can try to go farther. Now, that's also on the Clippers organization by giving him that much amount of power. But at the same time, when you don't live up to the expectations, and remember, champ, the Lakers, they even tried to acquire Kawhi in free agency so that there would be a possibility of a LeBron AD in Kawhi. But Kawhi chose to go on a different route to go to the Clippers. Plus, he's responsible for the Paul George trade. Remember, they traded SGA for Paul George. How's that panned out well for Oklahoma City? And especially with Sam Presti.
Mhm. The new Jerry Krause of the NBA, Sam Presti. Look, hey, two LA guys that haven't lived up to the potential. So, and like I said, that's the only thing I really hold against them because you were supposed to be. Look, you were supposed to be because they was talking about them being a new Jordan and Pippen
Yes,
at one
as
point,
far as what they do on the defensive side of the
defensive and
court,
the offensive side. So you were
especially
supposed to
defense.
be that. You're supposed to be that, but you come, like I said, come find out you were the popcorn fart in church. That's the main thing I hold against them. But it's not enough for me to put you in a tweener situation. It is not enough for me to even put you in a heel conversation. Your body has betrayed you. I get it. You're the face of load management. I get it because everybody's looking at the fact that you might get hurt the minute you go out there. The minute you go out there, everybody's holding their collective breath. It's like, is this going to be the game? Is that going to be the game? And these are just minor injuries that he suffered. It's not. It's not like it's like a. It's like it's like a broken leg or something like that. These are injuries that he's basically have been able to come back from. But when you think about a lot of things that he's been through as far as injuries is concerned, and still been able to get contracts, that's more of an indictment on the organization than it is on him. Because if I know a guy hasn't been doing anything as far as being on the court, then guess what? Why am I going to get him an extension? I'm not.
Right, but you can also hold this on Kawhi too, because again, if the injury is not as severe, you do realize that the fans, they don't get an opportunity to see you play every single time though.
Yeah.
And
Like I
again,
said,
yeah, and they waste their hard-earned money, and they may not get their money back.
absolutely. I agree with that.
Now, if the
But
injuries are legitimate, then we understand.
yeah, enemies, what about enemies? Injuries are legitimate. I understand. I understand. But, a lot of, like I said, you can't control injuries. And I don't know how many of those are legitimate and how many of those are the teams kind of resting you in order to make sure that you're not hurt. I don't know. So, I mean, so many lies and stuff come out about the press, about teams each and every day, about them feigning injuries. So I don't know which ones are legit. And I don't know. I'm just going to, if I don't know which ones and I don't know for sure, then guess what? I have to go by the report. And if the report says you're hurt, then you're hurt. I can't argue with that if I don't know the facts. I don't have a source within that organization saying, well, he's not hurt. So I can't blame him for his body not betraying him. Can I blame him for a lot of other stuff? Yeah. Trading SGA, who became a league MVP and probably the new face of the NBA. Yeah, in order to get Paul George, who kind of peaked in Indiana, if you really want me to be honest with you. Really didn't do a lot when he went to Oklahoma City. In my humble opinion, he peaked in Indiana during the LeBron era. Yeah.
I can understand them getting Paul George at the time because of what Paul George was younger, defensive player. I don't think anyone expected much from SGA champ. And then on top of that, Paul George's ability to move off the ball and catch and shoot in situations from time to time. So that would have looked well, but at the same time, and I love Kawhi's game. Great mid-range shooter. He's 6'7", 230. Huge, freakish hands.
Yeah.
Freakish hands. You seen his hands, champ, especially with Shaq's? They're
Yeah, the
huge.
claw. They call him the claw
Yo,
for a
they call him
reason.
the claw for a reason. Back-to-back defensive player of the year. But I lean towards tweener. I'm not gonna call him a babyface, but I can't necessarily call him a heel because he was productive and playoff. When he's in playoff time, boy, he's a different animal.
Yes, indeed.
All right, the next one, I think this one is pretty unanimous for babyface, Max Kellerman.
Oh man, I love Max Kellerman, man. Babyface.
You
Through
said
it
it
through.
yourself. He's the only person that if anybody has a chance attacking Stephen A. Smith, it's him. Because we've heard a lot of people.
Yes. Max Kellerman, man, look. I love hearing Max Kellerman when it came to boxing. Boxing, I believe if he would have stuck with boxing, he would have been like the next Burt Sugar. Because his boxing expertise, seeing him interview boxers on HBO and seeing how he was in the thick of it on HBO.
Him and Jim Lampley.
Yes, him and Jim Lampley. those were the cornerstones of HBO boxing. Him and Jim Lampley. So, and not to mention, he brought a good little flavor when he went to First Take, regardless of if Stephen A. liked him on First Take or not. I will never forget when he brought up the when I don't think the younger generation understand the significance of him bringing up the Last Dragon when he said, "Who is the master?" He said, "You say show enough, the Last Dragon."
Show enough.
Show enough. So, Bruce Leroy, but I
And
love
he's
Max
also a
Kellerman.
rapper too. For those who may not know, Max Kellerman used to
Yeah, I
rap.
didn't find that out recently. So hey, he's knowledgeable. He has the flavor in order to do that. And look, the only bad take that you can really say about Max Kellerman is he is gonna fall off a cliff. I think that was the only that was
No,
one of the
no. There's more.
there's a
Remember,
few more, but that one was the main one. He is gonna fall off a cliff. So
but that and what he said, Kawhi Leonard better player under pressure than Kobe.
yeah, that too. But that was the GOAT conversation was the main one. But he's done a lot of his outrageous takes. Got to remember that journalism has changed. We're not in the sports business anymore. We're in the story business. But Max Kellerman, nothing malicious about it. And like I stated, if it was anybody that has a reason to speak out against Stephen A. Smith, because Stephen A. has openly admitted to getting Max ousted off the show, it's Max Kellerman, but he hasn't. He's moved on to bigger and better things. And Max is a smart man, and his intelligence, his swag, his aura is, like I stated, he's a little, quirky, but not so much where it's cringy. He has that little nerdiness to him, but it's not so to the point where he's cringy. Which nothing wrong with being a nerd. Look at my wall. So just being real, I like Max Kellerman, man. Undisputed babyface, man. Smart, elegant, smooth, got flavor to him, nerd, able to relate to anybody. Remember what T.O. said, when he stood up for him when he was on the show with Stephen A.
I'm in
Smith.
the streets. Max almost seems blacker than you.
Yeah, so yeah.
Just looking at Max Kellerman's reaction when T.O. said that,
he damn near cringed if you really want like, ooh. But and plus, he was one of the first people to come out and said that he would never say the name of the old Washington Commanders now.
I was going to bring that up.
He refused to. Great minds think alike as usual, genius. But yeah, he was the first one to say I'd never say that name. And we had a discussion about that not too long ago. But
yeah, I mean, go say that to a Native American reservation and see where that end up.
Yeah, and watch you get gutted. So, which rightfully so. You walk on that saying that word. It's kind of like you come into our community saying certain words. Yes, F-A, F-O. Be my guest. Be my guest.
Babyface, brilliant, smart brother. First Take would be a lot better if Max Kellerman would be back because I loved how Max Kellerman challenged Stephen A. Smith. Remember he talked about marijuana a lot and brought up the scientific information because Stephen A. Smith constantly would say, "Stay off the weed." But Max Kellerman brought historical context. Both alcohol and cannabis. Back in the 1930s, champ, they were both prohibited. Alcohol was lifted. But then he brought up Harry S. Anslinger, who was like the godfather of drugs. He invented fake science to make false claims about marijuana. He would say the darker races feel like they're as equal as the white man if they use the stuff. If you smoke a joint, you're likely to kill your brother or your sister. Max Kellerman also, plus, to Marcellus Wiley's point, he did say this. Now, he didn't say Max is blacker than Stephen A. Smith, but there's one thing I do agree with Marcellus Wiley on this. Max understood more about black culture. Max Kellerman went to the University of Columbia, same as Marcellus Wiley. Highly smart, highly sophisticated. Obviously, boxing, when it comes to boxing, picking out X's and O's, analyzing. Can we name anyone better than Max Kellerman?
No, especially when they're boxing, man. Like I said, the cornerstone of HBO boxing was him and Jim Lampley, man.
Yeah.
That was beautiful, especially during the when Floyd Mayweather and when they started doing the 24/7 doing the Oscar De La Hoya fights.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And he was the one. And then I still remember the interview he did with Manny Pacquiao post fight against Mayweather. And Manny said, I won the fight. And like everyone else, Max Kellerman asked him, you thought you won the fight? How? And Max Kellerman was dumbfounded when Manny said that, because he felt like, Manny, you lost that fight. You connected on 19% of your punches during that match against Floyd Mayweather. And when I look at Max Kellerman, smart brother, brilliant brother. By the way, he has often called out James Dolan. He said he will never go to a Knicks game again. He'll never support the New York Knicks because he finally came to the realization that he can't support this team because of Dolan. And look, to your point, champ, he said it. Look, he is no fan of Washington because obviously the name in which they were, he was one of the few people in the media that refused to say the name. He even talked about how Native Americans gave him feathers and publicly thanking him for not using that term.
Yeah.
So Max is a deep brother, smart brother. And again, he's moved on. He doesn't have to say anything negative about Stephen A, although I wouldn't mind him saying it. We've heard Michelle Beadle. We've heard Kerry Champion. Oh, we've heard Jason Whitlock. We've heard a lot of people talk smack about Stephen A. Smith. But if there's one person that legitimately that has a right to call out Stephen A. Smith, is Max Kellerman. Because it was shady on the part from Stephen A. Smith to let Max out the door. And on top of that, you talked about the certain things that Max Kellerman didn't have, like such as not being a journalist. Max knew and understood sports.
Mm-hmm.
Max Kellerman brought a lot of things to the table. So, and remember, champ, he talked about a lot of things. They were going back and forth. He and Stephen A. about the Colin Kaepernick situation. Remember, this was at the time when Kaepernick had that workout with the NFL.
Yeah.
So, babyface, I say with Max Kellerman, man, he's brilliant, he's smart, he's knowledgeable, he's fun to listen to, especially when it comes to boxing. He is fun, and he shows a more empathetic side. And I lean towards more of his politics. Hell, if Max Kellerman running for president, I would vote for him. I damn sure wouldn't vote for Stephen A. Smith.
No more celebrity politicians, man. No more celebrity politicians. Even if I'm up for president, do not vote for me. I'm a celebrity, not a damn politician.
Well, unfortunately, look, the current president said, hey, I did it. Why can't you? All right. Now, this one. He is a part of the wrestling community. This is about him as a person, not the character. Jim Cornette. Babyface. I'm sorry. He is a baby. Anytime when you take the time to go on your platform and you talk shit about Vince Russo, now I would not go as far as what you would want to do to Vince Russo. You have to go do some homework and research. But anytime when you talk smack about Vince Russo, hey, feel free. Jim Cornette is a babyface. He and I are no fans of the president. Sorry, just stating that out there.
My God. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt this segment. I apologize because I remember exactly the video you sent for what he said about the seating president. Oh, that was.
He is, as you often call him, champ, colorful. But when it comes to wrestling, two people I want to listen to: the Jims, J&J, Jim Ross, Jim Cornette. He is a wrestling historian. Eats, breathes, sleeps wrestling. If Vince Russo is teaching me wrestling, I'm like the student at history class, either falling asleep or sitting behind the back of the class. When I'm Jim Cornette, I got my notebook, I got my pen, I'm writing down as many notes, I'm taking as many notes, many information as much as possible, because when you listen to Jim Cornette talk about wrestling, it's refreshing. He makes you feel like you're in that moment when he talks about wrestling, old school wrestling, 70s, the 80s, 90s. Hell, he even pushed New Jack, rest his soul, to do that OJ promo. I like to give a special shout out to my homeboy OJ Simpson. Two less we got to worry about. Keep up the good work. Because Jim Cornette knew and understood the politics, because after all, Smoky Mountain Wrestling, hillbilly, redneck, conservative, the type of audience that if you the type of heel to piss off with that type of audience, that would be it. Well, Jim Cornette, man, he is unapologetic. He's outspoken. He and our politics are more aligned. And look, I give credit to you and my little brother for introducing me to Jim Cornette, because listening to Jim Cornette, especially with them rap videos or them rap songs, remember the videos I've sent you about with Vince Russo with them rap songs?
Oh man, Jim Cornette, man, look. I know bluntness is a lost art, but I'd rather you shoot straight with me than bullshit me. And Jim Cornette reminds me just of a straight shooter. I know a lot of people don't like that. You know, straight shooters are a lost art. You kind of got to be politically correct. You have to go along to get along. And it's a no more softer. And I'm not saying this as an insult, because it is. It's more softer. It's more gentle. The world's a little bit more softer and gentle now. So people don't know how to react when it comes to bluntness. But sometimes you need that guy that's just gonna come out and just tell you like it is. Like if if something is some bull jive, you need somebody to come out and just say, this is some bull jive, we need to fix it. And no matter what spectrum that you fall up under. So, and look, I'd rather for you to shoot straight with me than for you to BS me. And so, Jim Cornette, if I could interview two guys, it would have to be him and JR, regardless of the allegations, that has recently been brought up. But I had to interview him, JR, and I have to say, well, two more other guys I'll say is Mike Today and Tony Schiavone, because they've lived through the Monday Night Wars. They went through the Golden Age. They went through a lot. So for those four guys, and their wrestling knowledge, and to know where it came from as far as the territories are concerned. Like I stated, I didn't realize until I got older, until I turned like 16, that wrestlers came from territory. I remember something that my mother and my father used to tell me. She was like, I remember when Ric Flair used to come down to Columbus, my hometown, every, Wednesday and every Sunday and Wednesday. And that's when I started realizing, oh, that's what they mean by the territories. Territories used to be on the road constantly. And, the regular everyday folk used to get to see Ric Flair and Abdullah the Butcher and people like that on a regular basis back in those days. Whereas now, last year when I went to the WWE, it had been damn near 10 years since the WWE had been in Columbus. So back in the territory days, they got more of an opportunity. The everyday person got a chance to see their favorite wrestling superstar a little bit more often. And Jim Cornette, guys like that, Vern Gagne, Greg Gagne, God rest Vern Gagne's soul. Those are guys that had seen it all. And if I could just sit down and just talk with them about how wrestling was back then, how kayfabe was back then, how did you stay in character when you knew you were at a bar? How did you know that, your best friend, you got to face him every single night, but you can't be seen with them on the road. How did you combat that? How did you resist going to have a drink with your buddy at the bar, although you knew you had to face him in the next towns the next day? I would love to sit down and have those conversations because, as we all know today, wrestling has kind of lost its soul. It's more of a reality show rather than it is kayfabe. You could pretend that you don't like each other, but eventually we're going to see something on the internet. And we can't really blame the internet for kayfabe not being, a part of wrestling anymore. We can't really blame that because there was a lot of instances on television where you had a chance to see behind the curtain, but you really didn't see all of it. But wrestling kind of lost its soul a little bit. But I would love to sit down with the old school guys, kind of like when you go into the barbershop and you talk about old school basketball, you talk about old school sports, you talk about old school football. I would love to sit down with the old heads of wrestling. I do emphasize the old heads of wrestling and really get a feel on how wrestling was, how the road was. How did they navigate through being on the road? How did it feel driving 500 miles to the next town? How did it feel staying at a flea bitten hotel because there were no motels at the little town that you were in, that the arena only holds um
Yeah, Undertaker, he talked about stories in which he had to sleep in his car.
yeah, I never forget Taker said a story that was very, very profound. He said he had tickets to the Riddick Bowe Evander Holyfield fight. He said front row. He said front row. I had a suite that I was gonna stay in. I had an outfit I was gonna wear. I was sitting ringside. Had everything squared away. Then Vince called me. He had fired the Warrior. He said, "I need you in Texas this Friday, well, this Saturday." I remember thinking to myself, really? And he said, I got to that damn high school. It was only 500 people in that damn high school. And I'm thinking to myself, I could have been in the Riddick Bowe fight. I think it was somewhere near like San Francisco somewhere, but on the bottom
Probably
end of it,
probably in the
but
Bay Area, yeah.
out in the Bay Area. He said, man, I was so pissed and angry when I got to that damn arena that night. But that,
Because I could have stayed in that fight. I could have enjoyed that fight. I was sitting front row and I
yeah,
get to show up to a high school place in which there's like what 500 people.
there's like 500 people there. So, yeah, that's, but those are the stories that I would love to sit down, take notes on, and just understand what those guys were going through before the glamour part came in. Because I remember at one point, wrestling was counterculture. It wasn't
Yes.
always popular. It wasn't always popular in the mainstream. Just like comics, like I have behind me, Spider-Man. It wasn't always popular. Grunge music wasn't always popular. Rap music wasn't always popular. I think that a lot of things were greater when they were counterculture rather than they became part of mainstream culture. I think a lot of things lose its soul once it becomes part of mainstream because then corporations get a hold of it and it loses the meaning of everything that it stood for at one point. And that's how come Seth Rollins recently came out and said a lot of wrestlers are just in it for the money at this point, which rightfully so. But as he said, there's no passion in it like it used to be back in the good old days. But I really think that Jim Cornette, with the knowledge that he brings, him being able to tell it like it is, him being able to call out anybody, don't care who you are, and
Especially what he did to Ed Ferrara after what Ed Ferrara did to Jim Ross after publicly mocking Jim Ross's Bell's palsy. Look, I understand Champ with Jim Ross with the recent accusations against Devon Dudley. Now, we don't know whether they are true or not. That remains.
yeah,
But I had no problem with what Jim Cornette did to Ed Ferrara because you're talking about someone with a man who has Bell's palsy.
exactly. It's just like someone making fun of you. You're gonna get. He'd have got worse. I'd have came up and punched his ass in the mouth. Just being real, you'd have got worse than that. You don't make fun of people's friends and make fun of people's ailments and make fun of that shit ain't nothing. Excuse me, that stuff ain't nothing to play with. You don't make fun of anybody like that. And like I said, I don't blame Jim Cornette for what he did either. You lucky you didn't get right hooked. So I mean, you make fun of somebody in their health ailments and stuff like that. Bell's palsy, it leaves you disfigured. It leaves you in bad states.
Yeah, and
So
he was dealing with a lot at the time, and this was after when his mother, rest his soul, Jim Ross, passed away, and it took that much of a toll on him. And for Vince Russo, do you know what Vince Russo called FRR? One of the smartest people.
yeah, because he wrote Duckman. I mean, which was a
But that tells you his hatred for Vince Russo, Jim Cornette. And why I love Jim Cornette is because Russo, he's an ultimate contradictor. He keeps saying, I hate wrestling, I despise wrestling, I despise the people in it and stuff. No, Vince, because you despise the people, because the people despise you because of how you treated the business. You treated it like it was a 9 to 5. You didn't care about the business. You keep trying to act as if you were the reason for the Attitude Era. You had talent. Let's not act as if you made chicken salad out of chicken shit. You had The Rock and Austin. You had Jim Ross and Jerry the King Lawler. You had talent. Okay, you went to WCW. You could have done something there. But you made it worse with them gimmicks. Not to mention putting the belt on David Arquette.
yeah. I will say this: you got to give credit where credit is due everywhere. Because the thing is, do I like Vince Russo from a wrestling standpoint? From a wrestling standpoint, no. But the thing is, those stars that were in the Attitude Era, they had to be made from scratch. Stone Cold did not have a gimmick coming in. He used to be the ringmaster. Remember, The Rock was part of the Nation of Domination. Remember, D'Lo Brown was part of the Nation of Domination. Val Venus, you know, a lot of those gimmicks were invented and helped by Vince Russo. So you have to give credit where credit is due at a certain point in order to say, okay, you helped do that. But when it was time when you didn't have the oversight of Vince McMahon and that got taken away, then you didn't do your part. It's easy to do it. And I can't even say it's easy to do it when you have oversight, because even then people have to wane you in and people have to say, well, that's not a good idea. This is a bad idea. Kind of like how you wane me in a little bit. Like, that's not really good, champ. So, when you have the oversight of a Vince McMahon, I'm not going to say it's a little bit easier, because it's not. You still have to deal with bosses. You have to deal with the consequences of certain things if it doesn't work. But I will give him the credit, because guess what? These were not established stars. You were building up. Like I stated, from a wrestling standpoint, Vince Russo, he doesn't get a lot of high marks. But coming from the generation, coming from new generation of the WWE, many wrestling fans that are not hardcore wrestling fans call that the lost generation. Because although you had a lot of great technical wrestling, you had a lot of great in-ring wrestling, a lot of people didn't consider that entertaining, going from the golden era of wrestling to the new generation of wrestling, that being in the mid-90s. So he was able to put his stamp on there and turn it around and turn it into something that was not only fun, but entertaining and represented counterculture.
But here's
He
the
was
thing.
able
But
to
go
put
ahead, champ.
WWE in a position to compete with Eric Bischoff. So although people give Vince Russo a badass rap about, how he viewed it as a 9 to 5, again, credit has to be done, because you were transitioning from that lost generation as far as the new generation to the Attitude Era. That is to this day, the most watched generation of wrestling in the world. They're still selling t-shirts off your hard work to this day.
But at the same time, champ, it does. But at the same time, champ, the reason why I don't give Russo the credit and why I agree with Cornette, those those people had that ability. They just finally needed to know when to use it. When Austin cut that Austin 316 promo, it wasn't because of Vince Russo. That was because of Austin. That was because, again, he came straight from the ambulance after that first match against that opponent. And then as he's about to go back into the arena, he gets informed by Michael Hayes, if I'm not mistaken. Michael Hayes informed Steve that Jake the Snake Roberts cut a promo, and this is at the time when Jake the Snake Roberts was a born again Christian, guaranteeing that he would win the match by bringing up the Lord. And Austin came up with John 3:16. Austin had the ability to finally say and speak in a way that he was allowed to. So I lean that more on the talent, and I lean it more on the other people. And with Cornette, Russo, look at the shitty ass ideas he came up with, champ. Come on, the brawl for all. I mean, you take wrestlers out of their own element by putting them in a situation, like Jim Cornette said, it's kind of like two drunk dudes fighting at a bar.
Yeah, but for every one bad idea, I would say the DX was good. Val Venus was good.
I give
You know,
DX, I give Val
the
Venus.
most he wrote the most highly. He wrote, one of the most highly, the most viewed Raw segment in history. He did a lot. Like I stated, a lot of people you're not liked for it because the opinion of others, but you got to give credit where credit is due. Like I stated, I lived and watched New Generation Wrestling. I remember how people looked at you. Look, let's just be real at this point. And I don't like using this term, but people looked at you like a dork during the New Generation era. People called you a nerd, call you an idiot when you watch wrestling back in those days during the New Generation. When you were transitioning from that, it was a lot of different things that was going on. If you really look at it, that was one of the ratings were down on across the spectrum. And he was able to help as far as build up to the point where they could compete with WCW. But so although I may not like someone, like I stated, it's kind of like I would say, let me think of a guy who I really don't particularly care for. I really can't think of any. But certain things you have to give credit where credit is due. Because guess what? You may have treated it like a 9 to 5, but if you put your all into it, look, I will say this. A lot of people treat things like a 9 to 5 because that's their job. But does that mean that they did not take it serious? Hell no, that doesn't mean it. If you took it serious,
I think Russo did, champ.
if you took it serious, although you considered it a 9 to 5 and you were able to find success in it, okay, you did your part. There's a lot of people in the field that I'm in. I won't say what field I'm in. You know what field I'm in, PSP, outside of the camera. There's a lot of people that get into that injury because it's a lucrative industry. They don't necessarily have the passion for it. But you call these guys when you want to get a job done. Hey, I don't know this thing. Could you help me with it? Well, I know this. Just because you don't have the passion and you don't wake up, eat, sleep, and breathe it, that doesn't mean you don't have the knowledge for it. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of guys outside of us that don't live, eat, and sleep and breathe sports. Me and you sit on here and we scroll and we find different stories all the time. But I know guys who are smarter than me when it comes to sports, and they barely damn watch it. They could tell me what's going on. I call certain guys and they barely watch a game in baseball, but they could tell me everything that's going on. So if you've done all that you could and you've treated something like a job, that doesn't necessarily make you the bad guy. You did your job and you put your all into it. It's when you don't put your all into it, that's when the problem lies.
But the problem I have, champ, with Vince Russo, I don't think he did put all into it, and he didn't care. Not much. Very little. The thing is, he took wrestlers for granted. And look, one of the things, and you will vouch for wrestlers, you do get tired when people say that wrestling's fake or the injuries are fake.
Yeah.
Nah, they ain't fake. You can say a lot of things about wrestling. It could be choreographed, orchestrated, predetermined, a lot of things. But you cannot tell me that them injuries are fake. And Russo treated it like it was nothing. He didn't care about their mental and physical well-being. And when he left WWE, did WWE took a downfall? No,
No.
he went to WCW. And how did that turn out? Now, obviously, Bischoff had a lot to do with it for the downfall, but you can't tell me that Vince Russo made it any better. He
No.
still claims to this day that the ratings went up when he was there. But we all know that he's bullshitting. Then, on top of the fact that you put the belt on David Arquette, knowing he did not pay his dues as a wrestler.
He put it on himself.
But that shows you just how delusional and incompetent you are. I'm sorry, champ. It has to be. I mean, Booker T, it was a slap in the face because Booker T paid his dues. And he even admitted why he didn't get the title at first was because he black. I hate to. I mean, I don't like using. I mean, I know how you are with the race card and stuff, but hey, that is the
If
truth.
something is true, it's true.
And the thing is, with Vince Russo, the horrible ideas, the terrible ideas you came up with WCW. Let's not forget Bash at the Beach. You claimed that if it weren't for Eric Bischoff, you would have a 100%. If it weren't for Bischoff, you would have had a great relationship with Vince Russo. How am I supposed to find that to believe when Hulk Hogan at the time had 100% creative control? How would that work?
It's an interesting proposition, but I mean, to your point, everybody's not lying. You know, when everybody says bad things about you, even Vince said at one point, there's a lot of people that kind of felt like I firmly planted Vince Russo.
He felt that he was mostly better than that roster in WCW.
Yeah, he said there was not like I stated, they felt like he was a plant, and you know, towards the end.
And that's how I feel about with Jim. And that's how I feel with Jim Cornette. The reason why I call him a babyface because anytime when you take the time to criticize and bleep on a guy like Vince Russo, I'm sorry, I love it because Cornette feels like how dare you? How dare you treat this profession and treat it like it's shit, like it's worthless? You don't understand the real type of wrestling. You don't understand what goes on behind the scenes. Plus, Russo still claims to this day that he was involved with the Montreal Screwjob. As Jim Cornette mentioned the quote with Bill Watts, if he was walking through a men's locker room, he'd be whistling "Strangers in Paradise."
That was that was crazy, but yeah, I gotta agree, babyface,
because he's not afraid to say whatever he's on his mind. And look, to call out Ed Ferrara, and rightfully so for what he did to Jim Ross. And look, he was the one who convinced Mick Foley to also come back to work after the Montreal Screwjob.
Yes, indeed. I remember that, and I remember you sending me that, and you having a long, elaborate talk about it. Like I said, I call you the genius for a reason, and that's the reason why I said I don't have a problem with what he did to Eric Ferrara. Because if somebody was to say something about you, I'd probably say something that egregious about you and make fun of you about certain things in your personal life, which we will not discuss on the screen. If somebody was to make fun of you, they'd probably end up with a broken jaw. And trust me, I used to be an amateur boxer, so I could make it happen. So I'm just gonna be real. So
we don't want you to advocate violence.
No, I apologize, but still, don't mess with my guys, and we won't mess with you. FO. So don't do that to people. So yeah, like I stated, I don't blame anybody for taking up for their friends. I don't advocate for violence. I don't condone violence. But if somebody messes with one of your people, I condone you sticking up for them in whatever way you see fit. That's what I condone. And if people are going to make fun of certain ailments that you have, especially something as serious as Bell's palsy, and when you're disfigured and you don't know, and you got to remember, Jim Ross got fired the first time he caught Bell's palsy. First time he caught Bell's palsy, he got fired in the early days. And so, for somebody to make fun of that, and then when he had another episode with it, his face was, it's a strange thing. Like I said, you never advocate for violence, and I will say that you never are supposed to say anything like that or advocate for anything. But the thing is, I don't have a problem with you sticking up for your friends or your people, whatever way you see fit. If they're going to make fun of something that sensitive, do not look. I'm all for playing. I'm all for jokes. As you all know, I make fun of myself a lot, but I have a rule. Somebody has ailments, sickness, stuff like that, don't make fun of that. That's nothing to play with because, hey, you never know what somebody's going through behind the scenes in order to combat with that. They could very well be going through depression because they're not used to dealing with that. So you got to be careful with the stuff that you say and the stuff that you put in God's universe. Otherwise, it'll come back to you. Like I said, I don't condone violence or anything like that, but I'm condoning if somebody says something disrespectful to your friend or does something disrespectful to your friend, your mother, your father, or whoever, guess what? You're allowed to react to the way you see fit because it's not funny.
Absolutely. But folks, that concludes the rest of the Sports PSP podcast. Big fella, appreciate you taking the time, man. Any final words before we wrap up the show?
People, please, let's take off the entertainer hat and let's put on the real hat for right now. People, please, it's the weekend. Do not act the fool. The judge don't get back to Wednesday. Do not act the fool. Go home. I'm all for going out and having a little sip at the bar, but drink responsibly, as PSP always says. Act responsibly and do responsible things. Don't go out here and get in trouble because you will end up in jail until Wednesday. Don't act the fool tonight. Be safe. Cherish your family. No bad words. No bad gestures. No bad energy. Keep your words soft and sweet. Life is too short. No bad words, because bad words can start a lot of things that it really wasn't supposed to. It really not supposed to. So no bad words. Keep your words very, very soft and sweet. Remember, you can get more out of a situation with sugar than you can vinegar. So treat people in the nicest way possible, especially considering everything that's going on in the world. You never know what somebody's going through, and your soft and sweet thoughts and your soft and sweet words may be the difference between them going or coming. We'll put it that way, just to keep it soft.
Will do. Anyway, folks, happy belated Thanksgiving. Please enjoy the rest of your weekend. Please enjoy the holidays. Stay safe. Please drink responsibly. Have a good time. And let's just end off the weekend and right. Big fella, as always, appreciate you hopping on the pod. And we'll definitely do the Sports PSP pod every Friday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all weekend and peace.